because of the economic impact on a community for well-funded and successful early childhood programs, the return on investment for a community can be as much as $17 for every dollar that is invested. That is not an expense, that is an investment. It all starts with brain development. We know that most of the development of the brain occurs in the early childhood years. The next slide will illustrate that for you. And we know that the experiences that a child has in the early years directly impacts the physical development of the neural connections, the development of the synapses in the brain. Children who do not have appropriate experiences in the early childhood years will not ever be what they could be without the development of those neural circuits. I love this graph. It really illustrates how the brain is developed. It's wired from the bottom up. One layer depends on the development of the next layer that depends on the development of the next layer. This depicts three of the pathways that develop, the sensory pathways, vision and hearing, and you can see that before that develops before language. Well, that makes sense. Until you can hear, it's difficult to develop language. And the higher cognitive functions develop after the language pathways. Now this represents the growth of the development of the synapses. This is the way our brain grows. Look at where they peak. The maximum, the peak for vision and hearing occurs, I can't tell from that, but it's about 5 or 6 months, 4, 5, 6 months. Language peaks 8 or 9 months, and the higher cognitive functions peak at a year. Beginning at about age 1, the brain begins to develop at a slower rate. Our capacity for change reduces as we age. It decreases. The old saw, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. There really is some truth to that. And remember always that it's the experiences the child has that cause that brain development. Those experiences are what determine whether or not a child will be ready to start school at age 5. So why do we care? Why is that important to us? From the standpoint of the community, it directly affects the economic vitality of the community. It affects the economics of the community. Think about the expense side. Children who are not ready to start school at age 5, and the truth is if they're not ready at age 5 as a whole, they're not going to ever be ready, really. There are some qualifications to that which I'll give you in a minute, but just overall remember that if they're not ready at age 5, the game's over. So that when those kids get out into the community, they are not ready to be fully participating community citizens, and that affects the social services. That's a cost that we have to deliver as a community. The more people that we're not ready, the more social services we have to deliver. It also affects the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system, the costs associated with that are the single largest cost that a community will have, or a state or a nation will have as a result of children not ready at age 5. There is such a close, direct relationship between readiness, school readiness, and jail, that a number of states they do the long-range planning for the number of jail cells based on 3rd and 4th grade reading scores. 3rd and 4th grade reading scores are the leading indicator for jail. From the income side of a community's economics, this one's easy, the more well-trained, well-educated people you have, the better jobs, the more money they make, the more they pay in taxes, the more they're able to contribute to the community and social programs and so forth. From the business's standpoint, this is all about workforce development. The school district is in the business of developing a workforce for the community businesses, and the businesses, of course, drive the economics of the community. Businesses all need a stable, educated workforce. Now, by educated, I don't mean rocket science. I mean employees that can read, employees that can write, employees that know basic math, employees that have enough social skills that they can work with other employees in a fashion that at least is short of mayhem, and they develop some critical thinking skills to take care of the little things that happen in everybody's job throughout the day. So where do we all expect these community citizens and employees to come from? Well, we expect school district to turn them out. All right, here's the bad news. They can't do it. The school district cannot change the dynamics of the large population of children that are not ready to start school at age 5. Sherry Patterson will have some statistics for you. For the purpose of my presentation, just know that more than half of the children that start school in St. Joseph are not ready to start school. Nationally, that statistic is 46%. In St. Joe, it's, I believe, 52%, but it doesn't matter. Call it 50-50. And because the numbers are so big, the school district will never have the funding and they will never have the personnel capable of dealing with the magnitude. Doesn't mean they don't try. Doesn't mean they're not good people. It just means they can't. Let me illustrate it this way. Got any card players out there? Well, if you're dealt a fistful of 2s, 3s, and 4s, it doesn't matter how good a card player you are. You're not going to do much with that hand. You're not going to turn 2s, 3s, and 4s into jacks, queens, and kings. And that's exactly what's happening here. Another illustration that I like to use to illustrate that kids not ready are not going to catch up is a foot race. You're going to run a 12-block foot race. It's just that you're going to start 2 blocks behind everybody else. Do you think it's realistic that you're going to catch up? Now, when I say this, please understand it. Get this point. This is important. I do not mean to imply that an individual child is unable to overcome the deficit of being not ready at age 5. Individual children certainly can and certainly do overcome that deficit and do well in life and do well in school. What I do mean to apply is that when half of the kids are in that state, there just isn't enough money to fix it in school. And I think a little bit about what that means for our community. Now roll this forward a couple of generations. Half the kids are ready to start school, half the kids are not. The population of children that were ready to start school will go on to get a good education. Some will go to college, they'll get married, and they'll move away. My wife Lynn and I have 2 children and 4 grandchildren. Both of our children moved away. They both had opportunities to go somewhere else. And that's very common for children that have done well in school. Now then take the other half that were not ready to start school. They will not have the same kind of opportunities that the children who are ready have. And I believe that a smaller percentage of the not ready kids will leave as compared to the ready kids. Now the not ready kids are going to start having babies of their own. And in many cases, those babies come way too soon. And they don't have one, they have multiple. And the families repeat the cycle. So think about those numbers in 1 or 2 generations. We could be dealing with 40% ready and 60% not, or 30% ready and 70% not. And that really troubles me for our community, troubles me for the United States. We're not alone in this issue. Now layer onto that the issue of global competition. Over the last number of years, we've all read stories about companies that have outsourced production out of the United States. We know that they outsource call centers because we get on the phone and we call and we're talking to somebody who is unable to speak English and we know they're from another country.